Alright guys, this is part 3 of my Maya Basics tutorial series. On this one I'm going to be focusing more on the basics of modeling. So in this tutorial we are going to be modeling two very basic objects. The first one is going to be a spray paint can, and the second one is going to be a chair. So I'm going to try and keep this very basic and just give you a rundown of the basic modeling tools using the making of these two objects. So let's start with the spray paint can. The only tool we will be using with the spray paint can is, first of all, our polygon cylinder primitive and the Extrude Tool. We're going to make the entire thing using just those two tools. So let's start by making a cylinder. We're going to try and make it a rough estimate of the size of this white portion of the spray paint can. Alright. Now I know I just said a couple seconds ago that we would only be using these two tools, but I think this is actually a good opportunity for me to show you a different tool. If you go under Edit Mesh here, and then find Insert Edge Loop, this is a tool that's very useful. Basically what you do is, oh wait, hold on, sorry about that. I changed the settings here, change it back to the default. That should be defaulted for you, so don't worry about that for you. It should do it automatically. Anyways, click on one of the edges here, and it'll make a loop around all of those edges that you can place on the object. And that's one way to add new edges. So if you move that all the way near the bottom where that silver thing is going to be, just do that. And then go to your Move tool, right click, hold down right click, and go to your Vertex component selection. Press space. We can go into our side view, or this is actually the front view. Select all of the bottom vertices, and we're just going to scale those down a little bit to make that little ridge on the bottom there. Okay, so that's good. Next thing we're going to do is actually move these vertices up a little bit because it's actually a little bit taller than I thought it was. Okay. Now we're getting into Extrude Tool. The rest of this will just be extrude, don't worry. I promise. So, now when you're working with a cylinder, you have a lot of faces on the top that it might take a little while to select them all. So what I usually do is just go into your front or side view, do a box over all of this top portion, and then hold down shift and deselect the sides. So now you have just the top selected, and that's a quick way to select the top of a cylinder. So now that you have that selected, you go up here and there's this tool. It's the plane with a little cube coming up from it, and that's the extrusion that it's showing, and that's your Extrude tool. So if you click that, then go to your move, I move this up, you'll see that now this entire face, now there's a new face or a new extrusion from your object, which is basically what the Extrude tool does. And you can do this with any set of faces or even just one face. So in order to make this ridge, what I'm going to do is start with it being at the same height here. Actually, let me just Control Z so I can get the right height back to where it was. Okay, so you're going to start it with the same height, scale it in a little bit, just to that ridge, hit extrude a second time, go up a little bit, and boom, you have that little ridge. So now that we have that, we can extrude again. make this little side where it curves in, so we're going to make that so scaled in a little bit, about the same amount as you did for the ridge. Okay, actually a little bit, actually make it twice as much. We don't have to add that little detail, that's not a big deal. Okay, make it twice as much. So now we're going to make this little plateau here, so we're going to extrude it. First bring it up, scale it just a little bit. Okay, see how this curves. I'm going to scale a little bit. The first one, a little bit more. Extrude again, bring it up, scale it in even more this time, so that you get that nice curve there that it looks like in the picture. Okay, that's good. You can move it up a little bit. You can go ahead and edit this to your liking. Okay, now let's extrude another time. And this time, see how we're making this little indent here where it kind of, there's a little black portion where it kind of comes all the way in and then goes, and that where that top part attaches to it. So to create the illusion of a top part that's attaching to it, so we don't have to make an entire second top part, what we can do is just extrude really small. Extrude again. Make it go up a little bit, just a little bit, just to make that little space. A little bit less. You can probably zoom in, make this better. It's probably good, just to make sure that you can't see this little thing on the inside. And then we can extrude out to the size of that, which is about here. Looks right. Extrude. Get that nice little top part. Okay. Now to make this little skinny pole here in between this and the top sprayer part, we can extrude again, scale it all the way down to that size. Okay, extrude up, oops, extrude up, looks good. Might have made it a little bit too big, but that's no big deal. Oh, whoops. Hit extrude again, scale it out, a little bit bigger, extrude last time, and boom, we have a spray paint can. Haha, yes, it's very impressive, isn't it? Very simple. For any of your objects, there are 3 different ways to get rid of how it looks how you can see the faces here. Or it doesn't look so smooth, it looks kind of jagged, it doesn't look very good. There's 3 different ways that I use, and it depends on the type of object you are making. The first 2 are a little bit more illusionish, and they can be, I usually use the third one, is what I'm trying to say. The first one is the most sketchy, and I wouldn't recommend using this unless you want to make something that looks kind of old. So if we come up here, we have this Chamfer Tool, and if you click on the entire object and then you click this, it'll chamfer the entire object. And as you can see, it adds kind of ridges to it, but it does make it look smooth. However, again, I would only use this on something that's supposed to look old. This is not supposed to look old, so I would not do that. The second way is to go under Edit Mesh. You can bevel. Now this, hold on. One with bevel is it doesn't scale to the size of the object, so you gotta go under the options and change how much it's doing. So right now it's only 0.1, so that's why I can't see it very well. Let's change it up a little bit. Now if we look, it is smoother. The problem with bevel is you can still kind of see those edges, and it's smoother. It's not that smooth though. So again, this all depends on what you're working on. So bevel wouldn't really work very well for this one either. Now the last one is the one I use most often, and it's it's cool because I like it. I usually use it on almost everything because it just makes everything look more like it's supposed to be in an animation. If you're trying to make something photorealistic, you can still use this, but you have to dial down the settings a bit. So if I show you, it's the tool's name is Smooth. If we go under the options, you can change the amount of division levels. I would recommend only doing one, unless it depends on your object, but I usually one is enough. And the more you do, the more polygons you're going to get on your object, and the less polygons the better, because that means the faster it'll render. So I usually keep it at 1 unless I absolutely have to raise it. The continuity is basically it changes the tolerance it has for the thing. So it basically changes how much it smooths it. So if I were to change it to say 0.06 and apply, it doesn't change. It does still look nice and smooth, but as you can see, it doesn't change a lot of this stuff. It has very low tolerance, so it doesn't smooth it out that much. So if I were to Control Z that, and then move this all the way up to 1, now as you can see, it's very smooth. And this might actually be a little bit too cartoony for a spray paint can, depending on your project, but you can pick this. It's up to you. I'm going to be a little safe and keep it around in the middle. So let's try that. And that looks pretty good to me. So there you have it. We've made a spray paint can. You've made your first object in Maya, unless you saw a tutorial before this. And this might be your second or third, but it's the first one that I've taught you how to do. So officially, you get the idea. Okay, second object that we're gonna make, a chair. Might need to scale this up a little bit because, whoa, not that much. Okay, can probably hide that second chair because we're not making that one. We're making it like around there, and just move this over. And that looks pretty good. That'll work. So we're making this chair right here. So let's start. Actually, hold on. Let me just move this to the side so we can look at this later. Okay, so start making this chair. The difference between the spray paint can and this chair we're going to make is that the chair is going to be made up of multiple objects, while the spray paint can was just one object. So, for example, each leg is going to be a different object. Each of these little swirly pieces of wood will be a different object. This cushion will be a different object, and all these bottom things will be a different object. Basically, it'll all be like 10 different objects when we finish, until we use tools to combine those objects together, which I will get to when we get there. So let's start. First off, we are going to make these long legs. And we only need to make one because we can duplicate it in order to make the second one. So we're going to start by making a cube because these legs are square. And hold on, let me change the settings of the cube here. Let's just make it all 1, 1, 1 for the faces. If you want to change, probably should mention this, if you want to change the settings of any of the tools up here and you don't know where to find, like under here, you can just hit the box next to it. But if, for example, if you don't know where to find these up here and you don't want to bother looking for them, if you just double click on it, it comes up with the settings for that. Or if you're in something else and then you click a different tool, it will automatically go to the settings for that tool instead. Actually, it should. Wait, never mind. Okay, I said that. You just double click on it if you want to change the settings. Okay. Let's start. Should I use that tool? Okay. Usually for me, it's just for objects that are objects and not like living things. Usually it's a decision between either the Extrude Tool or the Insert Edge Loop Tool. So this one I'm going to use the Insert Edge Loop Tool because I already used Extrude a lot in the last one, so you can use some practice with that. So let's go with the Insert Edge Loop Tool. So we're going to make this about the length. Instead of starting at the bottom, we're just going to start with it all completed and then change it. So we're going to make it about the length of what that's going to be and how skinny it is. And then we're going to add the curve to it. Okay. Looks about right. Doesn't need to be perfect because this is just a tutorial. Okay. So we go to Edit Mesh and go to our Insert Edge Loop Tool, which is right here. We want to first insert an edge loop here and an edge loop here, because if you look closely, this goes at an angle here, starts going vertically here, and then goes back at an angle here. So we're going to put 2 edge loops. One about here. One about here. Very good. Okay. Now let's go to our Vertex selection tool. Select this, and I think these go back about the same amount, so we can probably do both of these at the same time. So hold shift and select all these top ones. So now you have the top and the bottom vertices all selected. And if we just move these back a little bit, just a bit, boom, we have that curve that the chair has. Now, as you can see, it kind of scales out a little bit here. So let's make that. We select all the vertices, go to scale, just scale it out a little bit in that direction. Okay, looks pretty good. Right, actually, let's insert another edge loop here. Where's the edge loop? There's another edge loop here because it doesn't really start getting bigger until the very end, so we can just scale this back. And now that's better. Okay. Looks pretty good. Okay. Before we duplicate the next one, let's make the rest of the things we're going to duplicate. So we're basically going to make this entire side, and then we'll duplicate it over. So, let's make this leg. And what we're going to do that is we're going to duplicate part of this leg. What we're going to do, go to Faces, select all these faces, Mesh, and no, I'm sorry, not Mesh. No, yeah, Mesh. Okay. Mesh, Extract. And now these two are 2 different objects. See? So we're going to select that bottom part, press Control D, and that'll duplicate it, and move it forward. Not that much. Then we're going to rotate it because this, as you can see, the curve goes this way instead of that way. So we'll rotate it about much. Actually, we can rotate it exactly 90 if we go to our attribute editor. That's good. As you can see, there's a little hole up here, so we can fix that. Go to Edge, double click the top edge, and it'll select that edge loop. So select all the top edges. Go to Edit Mesh, and if I can find it. Wait, it might be in Mesh. Oh yeah, it's in Mesh. Okay, in Mesh, go to Fill Hole, and boom, you have a face that covers that hole. Now, as you can see, these two are still different objects, so we want to fix that. First, we can go to Mesh, Combine, and that'll make the objects all the same object again. However, if you look closely, if we move one of the vertex, we can see these vertexes aren't combined anymore. So we can fix that by, in our Vertex selection tool, we can select all these vertices, select this button right here, and that will combine all the vertices that are very close together. As you can see now, this vertex is all the same, this vertex is all the same. Very useful tool. Okay, so now we have our second leg, and as you can see, because we did all that weird stuff to it, the pivot points are kind of weirdly placed. if you want to move where your pivot point is, just hold down D, and now you're moving your pivot point. So you can just like you would select the arrows, you can move where your pivot point is to a more desirable location. Okay, that looks better. Okay. So now let's make this little thing in between the legs, little wooden plank there that kind of curves. So in order to do that, we're just going to make a new cube, and it's going to be very thin because that's very thin. And I'm sorry, we are actually going to have to change the amount of divisions along the width so that we can make that curve it has. So let's recreate that now that we've changed the width divisions to 5. We make it very thin, and that should be good. Doesn't matter if you make it a little bit too tall because you can, or too wide because you can scale it later. Plus, if it's too tall, this cushion will just cover it, so it doesn't really matter. Let's move this over a little bit because it's kind of not aligned with this, and scale this a little bit skinnier. Oh, whoops, no tool. Okay. Oh. Go to your move tool. Still not very aligned. It's better. Okay. Move this all the way up. Scale it a bit. Should be good. Go to your Vertex selection tool. Select all these 4 sets of vertices. Move it up about that much. And select these 2 sets. Move them up a little bit more. If you want to change how much curve it is, you can select all these bottom vertices and use the scale tool, and you can change that to however you like. And boom, you have your curve. Alright, now we have this entire side here. So let's go ahead and select that. Control D. Move it over a little bit. Actually, hold on, I'm sorry. I actually have a better idea. If we combine these, and we can always undo that. Actually, I have a better idea. I'm going to show you. Sorry. If you select 3 objects, you can go to Edit, and then Parent, and now the last object you selected will be the parent, and these will be the children. So now when you select that object, it'll select all 3 of the objects. So that's good. Now we want to go into Mesh, Mirror Geometry. That's the wrong way. Hold on a second. I'm sorry. Okay. Here, I'm just going to combine them. Just select them all and just combine them. Make it simpler. We can always undo that later. So, combine them, Mesh, Mirror Geometry. It would have been easier to duplicate it, but this is a good opportunity to show you Mirror Geometry. Select the correct way you want to mirror it. I usually just do catch and check for this. And that's not right. That's not right. That's better. Alright. And let's not merge with the original though. Okay. Okay, really? Mesh, separate. Okay, now you have... There you go. Okay. We got that in order. Okay, so move this over. About right place. That looks pretty good. Sorry, I'm a little bit stickler of details. Okay, select this, Control D, 90-degree rotation. Move it. Let's move the pivot point over. Move it up. Move it that way. Scale it so it's bigger, so it fits between them. A little bit more scale. Okay. And that looks correct. Okay. Now, let's actually add a second one of these in the back, because most likely, you can't see the back, but most likely there is one back there. Because most chairs have that, because otherwise the cushion would kind of fall back. Okay, so we got that there. That's all good. Now we have to make, the only thing left we have to make is this top part, these three curvy wood things, and the cushion. So let's start with the back of the chair with the top part. So because that's pretty easy, all we have to do is Control D on this one, move it up, move it to the right area, move this out, move this down a little bit, okay. And now we just have to curve the top, because as you can see both sides are curved on this top part. So move this up to about the same amount as that it was, and boom, we have the curve. As you can see, it kind of pokes out the side there. So all we have to do for that, select these vertices and select these vertices, straighten them out, move them a little bit because that's on different sides. Actually, I'm sorry. Let's just move this over. And then actually have a better idea if we go into our wireframe, select this, extrude, like we learned in the last object, scale it, and boom, we have our little outer parts. There we go. Move this one a little bit more because they're still not completely equal. Now we can go back into our soft, and you can see we have the little index there. Okay, that's good. Now we have to make these curvy things. So let's go select this, double click your cube again. Now the height divisions need to be more, because these are curved by the height. So put this back at 1. Let's make the height divisions, say 8. Make that not that big. Looks about right. Maybe a little smaller. Move it. If we want to move it more accurately, we can use our side views. So just press space to go in your side view if you remember from the last tutorial. Or click over here. And move it over. Not going to duplicate it quite yet because we still have to add that curve. Let's make it a little bit thinner because it has to fit into those things. Actually, need to be quite a bit thinner. Let's see. Smooth up here. Still needs to be thinner actually. That's better. Rotate a little bit more. This part needs to be kind of specific. Okay, that actually looks pretty good. And if we want to make it really specific, we can go into a vertex, select these bottom vertices, and just move it right there. And select these vertices and move it right there. And boom, now it's in there. Now it's nice. Actually, crap. It lied to us because of the curve. Let's do it in this view instead. That's better. And in this one, actually that one worked. Okay. That looks good. Now let's go into our side view. So go over your side view, click on it, press space, and it'll maximize that. Let's move this out of the way because it's kind of blocking our view here. Ah, crap, didn't mean to do that. Hold on a second. Okay. Go to your Vertex selection tool. So right click on the object, go to Vertex. And if we look how it curves, it kind of starts out kind of straight. And then kind of curves this way. goes back this way. And boom. That's not right. Looks pretty good. Pretty accurate. Doesn't need to be perfect. Scale it a little bit. Might be a little bit thinner than that. Move it over a bit. Control D. 1, 2, and 3. And we kind of moved it over a little bit too much. Let's move back. There we go. Okay. Looks pretty good. Doesn't need to be perfect. Close enough. Actually, it's moving. Again, I'm a stickler for perfection, so that's good enough. Okay. Looks pretty good. It's pretty good so far. Let's add that cushion now. We're going to make another cube, and before we do that, we're going to change. So double click on it. Go to your height divisions. Change it back to 1, and 1 and 1. Basically, how we are going to make it look like a cushion is we are going to use the smooth tool to its highest extent to change it from a cube into a cushion. Remember, we used the smooth tool on our last object, the spray paint can. Okay. A little bit skinnier. Gotta make it really good, perfect size here. Make it a little bit thinner that way. Okay. Maybe a little bit less of that. Kind of want it to hang over the edge a little bit. Probably should hang over the edge this way too, though. Okay. Just gotta make sure it covers those legs. Let's move it back and kind of make it slant with the legs a little bit, so we can move these vertices back just a little bit. Okay. Now we gotta click on that. Go to mesh, your smooth tool, go to your options. Let's go to 1, apply. It's a little bit too smooth. Let's try over here. It's pretty good, but I think it needs another division. Let's try it again. Pretty good. Looks pretty nice. Except now it's not the right size anymore. Again, we'll have to smooth it one more time anyways at the end because we'll be smoothing the entire chair. So let's scale it out a little bit. Okay, so this way, so that gets back to that good size. And I might have made this chair a little bit wider than it's supposed to be, so we can fix that in a second. Looks pretty good. Pretty dang good, yeah. Okay, let's select all of it. Mesh, combine, and boom. We have our combined chair. Now we just need to smooth all of it. So let's go to smooth. Now let's see, I'll go through the other two. Remember what I told you, the other two possibilities, see if that might look better. Let's try chamfer. Not that great. Chamfer actually does work with some object. It's very specific objects though. I would just try it before you go into the other ones and see if it works. Most likely it won't, but it's worth a try. Sometimes it actually works. Don't ever do it with things that are going to be changed in the animation. Like if it's a person, like the arms moving, don't ever use anything but smooth on like living things that are going to like be changed during the animation, if you know what I mean. I'll get more into animation later though. Let's not worry about that right now. Let's try bevel. Okay, that just kind of glitched out. Okay, sometimes Beeple does do that with some objects. Just Control Z it and don't try Beeple again. Mesh. Let's just go with smooth here. Let's try this first. Does that look good? That might be a little bit too much continuity. Let's change it down. And that looks pretty sick. Okay, if you want to select objects that have been combined, you just select all these. Like, if you double click on the faces, it'll select the different objects. So you can do that. Just want to move these all down a little bit. So just double click on the faces there. Move it down a little bit because the smooth kind of made it smaller. Okay, that looks good. Now we can, like I said, it was a little bit too wide, so we can just scale it down a little bit. Make it look like the picture. And boom, we have our chair. Looks pretty good. And what I wanted to show you is there are, before I finish up here, before I go, I just wanted to show you real quick. There are 3 different ways you can put objects together. So let's demonstrate with these 2 cubes. So, if you select both of these cubes, there are 3 different ways. 2 of them are under edit, and the last one is under mesh, and you already know it's combined. That only works with polygons though, so keep that in mind. If it's anything other than polygons, you can't combine it. If you go under edit, one thing there is group, which you can still select both of them individually, but if you go under your hierarchy, so if you go to, if I can find it, display, where is it? I really don't use the hierarchy that much, so I don't really know where it is. Anyways, if you go under your hierarchy, you can select the group and it'll select both of them. I usually don't use this because I don't usually use hierarchy, but if you want to get into using, if you go somewhere under window, if you want to try and find it, you can just ungroup these. One other way that it also uses the hierarchy, but you still use this even if you don't go into the hierarchy. If you select one object and then shift select another object, the object that was selected last will be the parent. Remember, we tried this with a chair before. It didn't really go as I was planning, but I'll show you again here. Or you can either go down to here to parent, or you can just press P or Shift P to unparent them. You go to parent. Now if you click this, it'll select both of them. Remember, all of these things can be undone. So there's ungroup and unparent. So if you want to unparent something, select. You have to, in order to unparent something, you have to select the children individually and then unparent them. And then the last one is combine, which you already know. You can undo that with separate. Okay, so that's all I have to say for this tutorial. Kind of ran longer than I expected, but you know. Spray paint can, chair, awesome first objects. The next tutorial I'll be going over the basics of animation. However, if you stick around, I will be, one tutorial series I have in mind is I'm just going to have a series of me creating random objects to give you more experience with modeling. So stick around for that, for when I finish this tutorial series. When I finish the basic tutorial series, I'll start doing that. Get into some more complex objects, should be exciting. The next tutorial will be, I will be giving you a basic rundown of animation. And then the last tutorial in this series, I will be giving you a basic rundown of rendering. So, that's all I have to say. Rate, subscribe, comment, all the good stuff. And, comment if you have any questions, I should say. Stick around for the next tutorial. Should be out soon.